Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to talk about the benefits of both elderberries and elderflowers. And yes, these come from the same plant. Some people think of them as completely different things, but no, they come from the same plants, and believe it or not, they pretty much have the same benefits. Even though some people will say, well, they're very different. Well, maybe they're very different in how they look and how you might prepare them or how you might use them. But generally speaking, they have mostly the same benefits. But I'm still going to read off their health benefits in two separate lists. And you'll see that I'll come across the same things and some of it worded just a little bit differently. But let's start off with the general nutrients that you will find in the berries and the flowers. Just keep in mind that depending on which one you're using, one's going to be a little higher in one nutrient than the other. For example, you're going to find more vitamin C, generally speaking, in the berries than maybe you would in the flowers. So they're both are high in antioxidants. Even I used to think the berries were higher. The surprising thing, it's actually higher in the flowers, because they're higher in your flavonoids than the berries. That surprised me. Also, vitamins A, B1, B2, B3, and C, and also omega-3s, choline, and quercetin. And by the way, I'm talking mostly about the Sambucus nigra. So even though you can get a lot of similar benefits from your red elderberries and your blue elderberries, my focus today is on the Sambucus nigra because they typically have the highest amount of health benefits. And more studies, I think, are done on those. But believe it or not, even though we're often told that the red elderberries are toxic, you can still use them. I'm going to direct you back to the video I did not too long ago about are these foods really toxic, where I talked about all three of the elderberries and why they are labeled as toxic. And that includes the black elderberries when eaten raw. If you eat too many of them raw, it's actually the seeds that you can have issues with. It's more going to cause problems with intestinal issues. But if they're thoroughly cooked, you're not going to have any issue with that. And you can eat some raw as long as you're careful. So anyway, moving on. Let me first read off the list of the benefits for the berries themselves. They're immune boosting and can help prevent colds and flus or help you heal up quickly from colds and flus if taken early on. The first sign of any kind of sickness, which is what we do, and I'll get to that later when I talk more about uses. So it's both for helping you heal up quicker from colds and flus as also preventative care. So some people like to take a little bit of elderberry in different forms daily to prevent getting illness. They're also very good for digestive health. They're helpful at preventing cancer. They enhance heart health. They're good for helping to treat diabetes, strengthening bones, aiding in weight loss. They're very beneficial to both skin and hair health. So this is in this case, with the berries, we're talking about taken internally. They're good for your eye health. That would be that vitamin A in there in particular. They're helpful at treating urinary tract infections. Great for brain health. I was really happy to read that because the very next video I'm shooting today is on herbs and more for brain health, and that one wasn't on my list. So that means that, anything that's good for brain health is going to help you stave off conditions such as Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, and more. And also means it's good for helping with depression as well. It's naturally antibacterial and is helpful for reproductive health, especially for women. In fact, I came across a very interesting article. I didn't read it word for word thoroughly, but kind of skimmed through it on the NIH, which I'll link to down below, where it talks about women's reproductive health and the black elderberries, but it covers more than just that. I thought it was interesting as it talked about some of the different studies done proving that elderberries are good for pretty much everything I listed off here. So now let's talk about the elderflowers. So what you see here are my own, because I grow elderberries. I have 3 bushes, and so I collect the berries, but before that I'll collect a bunch of the flowers, and so that's what you see here. They're the dehydrated flowers. And the flowers are good for the respiratory system, which of course the berries are as well. They're really helpful at reducing allergy symptoms. So I don't recall if this was one I added to my video I did on natural relief for seasonal allergies, but if not, know that this is one that can be added to that list. They also are great at helping with having a good, healthy blood supply. They're naturally anti-inflammatory, though you can use this internally for skin and hair health. For skin health in particular, this is another one of those many flowers that can be added to an infused oil or any kind of poultice salve or whatever to help with just general skin health or help to heal different skin conditions. It's great for managing fevers. They are also helpful for diabetes and used as an eye wash. It can be helpful at cleaning the eyes and curing infections of the eyes, such as conjunctivitis and more. It's helpful for sore throats. And just like with the berries, especially if taken on very early on, you can take it in the form of a tea. If you feel the flu coming on or even have any hint of the flu, this is really great, especially taken in the early stages of an illness. Also good for ear infections. So though yes, taken internally can be good, this can also be made into drops that you put into the ears. The flowers are supportive to the nervous system. So the brain is part of the nervous system. So that means it's also good for brain health and easing depression, and also are naturally antibacterial. So I'm sure there's even more. So how I compile this information is, just so you know, I usually say this up front, but I go to many different websites. I don't just stick to the natural-based websites that want to just talk about herb profiles like I do, but I try to look into the science. So I'll go to medical websites, and then I'll also look on the NIH like I did with that particular article that I'll be linking to down below, so that I can see the kinds of studies that have been done. Have studies been done? Has this been proven? And then also, because when you go to various different sites, you'll find that one site might focus on 3 or 4 different things that an herb is good for, while another site might have 11, or another site might have 3 or 4, but they're 3 or 4 totally different things. So it's good to compile information together, look at all the many different sources, but that still doesn't mean I covered it all in that list. There still could be many other things, which, with that in mind, anyone who's used elderberry, elderflower for anything, especially if it's anything I haven't mentioned on the list and you found it to really be helpful, please put that in comments down below. But even if it has been stuff I've mentioned on the list, because it's good to be able to see real life stories where the things that I've listed off really did work for somebody. So like I do with any of these videos, I compile photos, not just from my own library, photos I've taken of my own plants and things I've made from them, but a lot of the photos you see are also collected from the internet, so you can get all kinds of different views of what the flowers look like, what the berries look like. But also I've been trying to get in the habit of looking up what other kind of interesting recipes have people used these things in, because both of these can be used just as a food. So a lot of people think of the elderflowers just as medicine, whereas the elderberries can be food and medicine, but really they can both be used in food. So I'm going to be throwing in a bunch of photos here of just yummy looking things like cakes, muffins, cookies, and more that people have used either elderflower or elderberries in. As far as taking it medicinally, the most common ways for the elderberries, the one we hear about the most is in elderberry syrup, which I do make. I have my own recipe, which I'll link to down below. So far, it's my favorite recipe that I've created based off of using the elderberry, and boy, does it work well. Some people will make syrups out of it just for putting on pancakes. Elderberry wine is common as well, but I don't do that with my elderberries because I only get so many elderberries, because they take, for our area, the black elderberries take a long time to fully ripen. I can get a lot more flowers than I can berries. And then by the time they ripen, we get the windstorms that blow a lot of the berries off, or the birds come and eat them. So I do try to get enough to at least make a big batch of elderberry syrup with the berries once a year. But I also use the flowers when I make my syrup. So I do both in there. But one of the things I was going to say is different is that elderberries typically you're going to simmer. You're going to cook those down. Whereas elderflowers, you don't want to do that because you're going to ruin the benefits of the flowers. They're a lot more delicate than the berries. So like if you're using the flowers and making a tea, then that's something where you want to heat your water, then add the flowers in and remove it from the heat, or put the flowers in your cup and then, you know, pour it over your homemade tea bag, your little stainless steel basket for tea, however you do it. But you don't want it to simmer. You don't want it to cook. Now, a lot of people will use elderflowers for making cordials as well, but you can still tincture your elderflowers. You can also make teas from the elderberry. I've done that before too. I'm not as crazy about the elderberry tea. I'll throw a little bit into my cold and flu tea prevention / remedy when I make that, along, even though we'll have the syrup, but I'll throw a few berries in there, and then also, you know, along with cinnamon and more. And I have a video recipe I did just on a tea blend for colds and flus. And then I also did one with, I think, elderberries, where I was making water kefir. And I'll link to that, I'll link to that video down below. Now, the first thing I ever did with dried elderberries before I started growing them, there were ones I bought through Frontier Co-op, and I had made a tincture out of them. And you see a picture here. And I actually still have that tincture. It's years old, but that one was made with vodka. Here's the great thing about tinctures like that, is they can last forever. And I didn't cook the berries first. I just made the tincture, and it's not one I take often because it is, I think it was vodka I used in there. And I don't typically like those kinds, but if I have a sore throat or any kind of tickling in my throat and I need to cure it right away, that is one that I will turn to that's really helpful, especially if it's my vocal cords from talking, because I do have nodules on my vocal cords from years of teaching and singing, because I've been teaching all my life, not just on YouTube, but dance and martial arts. I did develop nodules, and sometimes when I'm doing videos, especially several in a row like I'm doing today, they can swell up and get sore, and I do find that the elderberry tincture is helpful. All I need is maybe about a ½ teaspoon at most, and I just really slowly let it kind of drizzle down my throat. I'll do the same thing with the other recipe I had that I have out for, you know, immediate relief for coughs and sore throats, that I'll link to down below. But that one doesn't have elderberries in it, but you can use elderberries in that as well if you would like to. But I did love looking at the photos of all the different baked goods people have used these things in too. So, you know, if you're just wanting to have fun with it, if you have plenty, that's not something I'd really do just because I get a limited supply and I want to save mine for medicine. But if you're one that gets more than you know what to do with, there's a lot of great ideas out there. One of the other thing I'm going to say about dosing is that it's all going to depend on what it is you're making and who you're giving it to, and what you're dealing with is going to vary per person. When I make the elderberry syrup, which I think I cover in that video, we typically might take 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time, depending on how much we think we need. And usually 1 dose does it for us. That's all we need. Now, my syrup doesn't have any alcohol in it, and because I add raw honey and I keep it raw because I don't add it until the solution is down to room temperature, the honey itself actually preserves it. So I've had elderberry syrup last in my refrigerator for 4 years. It probably could have lasted longer. It's just that it took us 4 years to finally use it up. And what I have in there now is a batch from this year plus a batch from last year, because I like to stay ahead on it so I can share it with family when they really need it. So anyway, there's a few ideas, and please, again, share with us down below. How have you used these things? What is your favorite way? Have you done any baking or making wine or anything like that with them? And let us know what you think about that. Don't forget to check out my full playlist. This is one I've been working on for over 6 years now, where I do profiles like this on various herbs, spices, and more, so that you can learn about the health benefits of these different things. So if you go to the playlist, the great thing about that is it opens up all the videos in that playlist, so you can look through there and see, oh, there's one on turmeric, oh, there's one on moringa, oh, there's one on feverfew, and then you can learn about those various different herbs and how you can use them. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.